Hillary Clinton went on Howard Stern's radio show, and she ended up taking some shots at Bernie Sanders. It's very clear that she still harbors resentment for Bernie. She, to some extent, blames Bernie for her loss. Add that to the list of other stuff she blames, like James Comey, for example, and Russia. I mean, the list is ever-growing. Sexism. Fill in the blank with whatever, the excuse du jour is. So let's take a look at what she said, and then I have a lot to say about it.
Do you just ever want to just lay in bed and say, fuck this, I'm getting out? I mean, I am going to go into full seclusion, and they're never going to hear from me again.
No. First of all, that would only delight my adversaries. So I would never do that. But secondly, I have this unique perspective, some of which we've been talking about today. I have a unique perspective. I have a particular understanding of the Russian threat. And it's not going to only be Russia. I mean...
So you must be laying awake at night.
I do. I worry a lot.
Because you know what the shenanigans are.
Yes, I worry a lot.
You've negotiated with them. You've seen secret intelligence.
I have.
And you know that, there's these guys who from Nigeria who phone your home and somehow finagle $6,000 out of you by doing that. Yeah. And you're brilliant at it.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what's going on when Vladimir Putin sits there and plans against the United States.
Well, but you can read the indictments against the Russians. And a lot of people didn't pay attention to it, but it's very informative and scary.
Do you mean the Mueller report?
Yeah, the indictments.
Okay.
The report itself, I think, is also worth reading. But if you read the indictments, basically they were like, hey, let's do everything we can to elect Donald Trump. I mean, those are quotes.
Those are
taken.
Words they
those
said.
are words that taken. And they also said Bernie Sanders, but that's another day.
Do we hate Bernie Sanders?
What?
Do we hate Bernie Sanders?
No, I don't hate anybody.
Bernie could have endorsed you quicker.
He could have. He hurt me. There's no doubt about it. He hurt me. But going back to the indictments, because that's what's really important.
Have you ever spoken to Bernie about that?
No.
You don't talk to him?
I don't talk to him. Yeah, I mean, we did when he finally endorsed me and all that.
But you're upset with him?
No, disappointed. Okay. So, and I hope he doesn't do it again to whoever gets the nomination.
Right.
Once is enough. We have to.
Everyone unite.
We have to join forces, and people could speculate and have some good reason to speculate about how bad it might be with Trump in the White House. Now we know there's no guesswork. We know, and we know that given his personality and his rage against anyone who questions him, Lord knows what he might try to do. So it's time to retire him.
She's red baiting Bernie Sanders. She's saying Bernie Sanders was a favorite of the Russians. The Russians wanted to get Bernie Sanders elected. I hate to make this an I told you so moment, but I told you all along when Russiagate started and throughout the entire thing, I was telling you that don't be so gleeful to hop on this bandwagon where you act like, there's some sort of Russian menace that's the overarching narrative for all of politics, and they're secretly controlling everything, because it's going to boomerang around to the left. It absolutely will. And in 1 week, we saw it happen twice. They just had an article in some goofy establishment outlet saying the same thing about Jeremy Corbyn in the UK. That, Russia wants him. So Russia wants him. Russia wants Bernie Sanders. Isn't it convenient that apparently Russia always wants the politicians that are opposing what the neoliberal establishment in the U.S. wants? Isn't that interesting? It's almost like it's just a cheap scare tactic and smear, which is exactly what it is. Now, by the way, Bernie Sanders gave 39 speeches for Hillary Clinton in 13 states in 2016. The dude did 39 speeches in 13 states. I think that Bernie Sanders, some people go after Bernie Sanders for the opposite thing, which is, oh my God, I can't believe you endorsed Hillary at all. I actually wasn't surprised by that, even though they 100% cheated Bernie. I still wasn't surprised by Bernie endorsing Hillary, because he really believed that Donald Trump is the greater evil. In his mind, he knows, okay, now we're to the lesser evilism battle. As much as we want to hope that Gary Johnson or Jill Stein could win this election, that's not going to happen. So he said, of the two options, this is the lesser evil. And he went and gave speeches for her, and this is how she repays him. I mean, could you imagine doing 39 speeches for somebody, going all across the country, trying your best to get them elected, and this is how they respond? You want to talk about bitter and ungrateful? I mean, what a loathsome person, man. What a loathsome person. There was another story that broke about a month ago that apparently Hillary's team was really mad at Bernie Sanders because there were some instances where he needed to get, from one speech to another, and he needed to use the Hillary campaign's private jet. And apparently people in her campaign were mad because they were saying, we got to let Bernie use the jet, but that jet is reserved for Katy Perry. They were mad at him because he needed to get from one Hillary speech to another Hillary speech fast, and he had to use the jet, and they're like, unreasonable. It is unbelievable. She is, historically entitled. Wow. So, by the way, when she talks about, the Russian threat, the indictments, read the indictments. The indictments were for clickbait troll farms that solely existed to make money. It wasn't the Russian government doing those things. That's where, and you know what she's basing this on? Oh my God, they wanted to get Bernie Sanders elected. You remember that goofy ad of a cartoon version of Bernie Sanders who's muscular and he's posing? That's what she's talking about. She's saying that's evidence that Vladimir Putin wanted to get Bernie Sanders elected. No, it was a clickbait troll farm, and the indictments came out, and we all knew their indictments were meaningless because it's not like the people who they were indicting were ever going to see a day in the U.S. court anyway because they're not in the United States of America. It was all a dog and pony show. Are you kidding me? What a joke this is. Now, I'm going to go a step further, too, though. The idea that, oh my God, if Russia prefers a certain candidate in a U.S. election, obviously you need to support the other candidate that they don't favor. Why? How? Based on what? Why? Because I got news for you, Hillary. Remember when you were Secretary of State? What administration were you working for? That's right, the Obama administration. You know who Vladimir Putin favored in both elections for Barack Obama? Him. They wanted him over John McCain, and they wanted him over Mitt Romney. Why? Because Obama said in no uncertain terms, I don't want to be an adversary of Russia. I want to work towards peace. He famously made fun of Mitt Romney when Mitt Romney said, we're in a new Cold War, and Russia's our greatest threat. And Obama was like, the 1980s called, they want their foreign policy back. Are you kidding me? Al-Qaeda's our biggest threat. Jihadists are our biggest threat. Russia's not our biggest threat. Why don't you work with them? Why don't you talk to them? Why don't you negotiate with them? Why don't you do that? Now, I, Kyle Kulinski, agree with Obama in both of his terms. He was correct about that assessment. He's taking the right position. Do you know why Vladimir Putin favored Obama over Mitt Romney and Obama over McCain? It's very simple. He doesn't want to go to war with the United States of America because he knows how that's going to end. And John McCain and Mitt Romney wanted to escalate, wanted to raise tensions, wanted to make it more likely that we end up going to war. So in the case of Trump, yeah, he said some things on the campaign trail. Wouldn't it be great if we got along with Russia? And so, of course, Vladimir Putin's going to favor Trump for that reason. Because any reasonable human being that doesn't want to maybe go to World War III is going to say, yeah, moving in the direction of peace is better than moving in the direction towards war. And, of course, Hillary was out there saying the exact opposite stuff, saying she might respond in a military way for cyber attacks, saying, we need a no-fly zone in Syria, which means troops on the ground in Syria, which means Russian planes are already in Syria at the request of Syria. So we might have to shoot down Russian planes. Boom, World War III. Are you kidding me? So even that notion of the Russian threat, oh my God. See, I know what they're capable of. They wanted Trump. They wanted Bernie. They never did anything that was, to get Bernie Sanders elected. Nothing at all. You're talking about troll farms, and you're trying to make it seem like it's this grand Putin plot. Absolutely absurd. But to the extent that they favored Bernie and Trump, and they favored Obama over Romney, so what? So what? She acts like that's drop the mic, walk out. Obviously, you have to vote for me because Russia wants the other people. It's just so thoughtless, man. And then there's other clues in there as to her mindset, which is really telling. do you ever want to pack it in, Howard Stern asked? By the way, great interview, Howard. Very tough questions. It's obvious that he's like, fanboying over her. And she said, no, going away would delight my adversaries. So look at the mindset. The mindset is like, gotta show my haters. Like, what are you, a rapper? I got all these haters, bro, and I gotta show them. What are you, a child? Like, that's so silly. You ask Bernie Sanders why he's involved in politics to this day and why he's fighting to this day. We don't have Medicare for all. What are you talking about? We don't have free college. We have over $1 trillion in student loan debt. Are you kidding me? We have to do something to stop climate change. We need a Green New Deal. We need to bring people a living wage. People are working full time. They don't make enough money to survive. You ask Hillary, why are you involved in politics? Because my haters want me gone. With every passing day, she further proves and shows how it is she lost to Donald Trump. And she really, no matter what she says, she hasn't come to terms with that. She hasn't grappled with the fact that, like, maybe it was me completely. Like, maybe I'm the problem. She hasn't grappled with that. Not at all. She's still, every time she talks in public, it's a blame everything but myself tour. To the point where she's even pointing the finger at somebody who gave 39 speeches for her in 13 states in 2016. And she's saying, Russia also wanted him and was trying to get him elected. Oh, man. By the way, they did the Pied Piper strategy, just so you understand. You know what that is? This is what we learned from WikiLeaks. They wanted to elevate Trump because they thought there's no way Hillary could lose to Trump. I'm not kidding about that. So there was a time when all of Hillary's staffers will go out on TV and be like, Trump. Trump's the one that we're afraid of. Trump's the one who looks like he's leading the pack. Trump's the serious candidate. They were doing that as a ploy because they thought, well, obviously if it's Trump, we're going to destroy him. So they did everything they could to boost Trump. And then he won. These are the political geniuses we're talking about here. These are the grand strategists and the people who think they see the whole chessboard with evil Russia making their moves. It's unbelievable how out of touch he is. And then the final point is, actually two final points. One is just Howard Stern is so obnoxious and annoying. Do we hate Bernie Sanders? What do you mean we? What do you mean we? What are you, married to Hillary? What do you mean we? Do we hate Bernie Sanders? Remember when there was a time that Howard Stern was like, a counterculture icon? Like he was this outsider doing edgy stuff. And now he's like sucking up to Hillary Clinton in the grossest ways possible. And he knows absolutely nothing about politics. And he's just a standard establishment Democrat. Maybe it's because he's got $17 quadrillion in the bank and he doesn't want Bernie to tax it more. Now the actual final point is, Hillary drops a hint at the end there. Hillary says, I hope he doesn't do it again, talking about Bernie. And what she's referring to is, he took a little bit to endorse me. By the way, it wasn't very long that he took to endorse her. And I'm happy he took a while because he was extracting concessions. She signed on to his, I believe it was free college plan because he held out. And he was like, she was like, basically, okay, what do you need to endorse me? And he was like, and this is where a normal politician who's part of Washington, D.C. will be like, I want a cabinet position. I want to be Secretary of State. I want to be Labor Secretary, whatever it might be. This is where a normal politician goes into careerist mode. Bernie's not a normal politician. So when she says to him, what do you want to endorse me? You know what he says? Free college. I want you to sign on to my free college bill. And I have no doubt that he was actually probably trying to say Medicare for all and a bunch of other stuff. So he wanted policy concessions because he actually cares. But she says, I hope he doesn't do it again. Doesn't do it again? What do you mean? She means, whenever there's an eventual Democratic nominee, I really hope he comes out and immediately supports him. But hold on, you do know he's still in the race, right? You do know he's number 2 in the polls, right? You do know the one in front of him is melting brain Joe Biden, right? You do know a poll just came out that has him leading in California, right? This idea, this smug idea of, obviously he's not going to be the nominee. Based on what? Based on what? Based on what? Based on nothing but your establishment bias. Based on the fact that you're still convinced to this day that neoliberal corporatism is the way to go. Even though you lost to Donald Trump. Even though we have a movement candidate who actually has people who care. Grassroots activists, boots on the ground, people fighting for him to get elected. He's got the most donors in history at this point. Are you kidding me? But no, the assertion is, obviously, I hope he doesn't do it again. It's obviously not going to be him. He's not going to be the nominee. either total idiots and totally out of lockstep with the times, that's what I think it is, or maybe something more nefarious, because we know that the DNC was just an arm of the Clinton campaign the last time around. Is she still controlling the DNC? Is she saying, hey, we're going to steal it from him again? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. But it really is amazing. Her ability to, every time she opens her mouth, she pisses off more and more people. By the way, she is a historic figure in this sense. Usually when a politician loses an election, or they go away, and they go away, or like even if they're president and then they go away, their approval rating bounces back because absence makes the heart grow fonder. So the idea of Hillary Clinton is better than the reality of Hillary Clinton to people. In the same way that George Bush in a recent poll was above 50%. Now that's insane. It's insane. But he was gone long enough where people were like, I don't know, I guess. Yeah, sure. He's not terrible. He was terrible. But this is what happens with the public. Hillary Clinton is a historic figure. She's been out of the public eye since losing the election. Every now and then she pops back in the news. Her approval rating to this day, it's now lower than it was when she lost. 36% is her approval rating today. I wonder why that is. Could it be because she blames everybody else for all of her failures, and she has no gratitude for people who tried their hardest to get her elected, and she still doesn't understand basic things about politics, and she still doesn't understand the times, and she still doesn't understand that it's time for political revolution, it's time for top-down reform? Whatever the reason is, the people are right. She's beyond insufferable.